It is the Blue Room. It is Blue Monday. I am Matt Jones, joined as ever by Dave Downey to reflect on an eventful weekend for Everton, an eventful weekend in the Premier League. Dave, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing okay. Yeah, I mean, I was petrified. I know we sat there watching it, didn't we? I was petrified of Luton and what they looked like they were going to do at Newcastle. And I don't know, I don't think many of our fans would ever want to thank Newcastle for what they did. But I tell you what, mate, when they got those two goals to get the draw, I think that was not a blessing in disguise for us, but certainly a help anyway, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I was more annoyed at Newcastle than Luton, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly one of our former players as well. But yeah, that was annoying. But listen, it wasn't the worst set of results in the end for us, was it? Over the weekend, there was a few. I think Forest got a good point, didn't he?
I think
Couple
when you look
of
at that league table now, Matt, there's at least four sides above us now who are seriously in amongst it. And I think it typically happens every season, doesn't it, where you get a side or two just drop like a stone. I think you look at Palace in real trouble, issues with Hodgson. I don't know if you've seen what they did on Match of the Day as well, all sorts of protests for their owners. Very similar to what we know over the years, and we're quite familiar with all of that stuff, aren't we? About the chairman and the board and all that sort of thing. And then you look at Forest as well. Even though they've got Santo in there, they're still not picking up some really decent results. Brentford too. So yeah, I mean, you look at the results there. There's only 3 to 4 points between us and them above us. So it's not only us or Luton anymore. I think you've got a few more sides who've come into this battle to stay up.
Yeah, Palace feel like the one, don't they? And it's not just the issues off the pitch with Hodgson and the fans and the direction of the club. They've got, I believe it's Elise, Eze, and Gueye are all out injured for a few weeks as well, which is obviously good for us when we play them on that Monday night, 2 weeks today.
Well, I'm not
But
sure whether you saw it or not, Matt. With Elise, there was real chaos after that when he come off.
mm,
He came on off the bench, and then came straight off when he was trying to sprint and get the ball, and it got launched forward, and when they were trying to be on the counter attack, and he ran about 10, 15 yards and just stopped, looked at the bench, and just said, "Well, something's gone." You know what I mean? One of his muscles, there was an issue on one of his muscles in his leg, and if you look at Hodgson, he looks furious. Elise comes off, didn't even speak to him. And then post match, Hodgson says that, well, typical Hodgson, he said, well, it's not my fault. The fitness group said he was fine to play. So I'm like basically in not verbatim said that we need to blame the fitness guys, and all of the people who sought him out said he was fit to play, so that's why I put him on. But it doesn't go back to old adage. I think Moyes used to say about this, where you wouldn't even include a player on the bench if he's not 100% fit.
mm.
And obviously, a manager of Hodgson's experience certainly shouldn't be doing that. And obviously, they got battered by Brighton as well, so he probably wasn't really needed on the pitch at the time. So yeah, it's a massive setback for them not to have him ready.
Yeah, loads going on over the weekend, both ends of the table. Just before we get into talking about Everton and the player of the weekend and a bit more about the game as a whole, the big talking point bizarrely on Sunday was about Arsenal players celebrating at the end of their win against Liverpool. And they get accused of a lot of this, Arsenal, I think, Dave, in regards to when they win, maybe they go a bit over the top. But the pile on from the game yesterday has been quite astonishing. I know, Jamie Carragher said get off and get down the tunnel straight away on the broadcast when Odegaard was fooling around with the camera. And then Gary Neville said they were immature afterwards and that kind of stuff. And there's been a few ex-pros and pundits trying to put the boot into them. But my word, it's caused such a stir today and last night. And I just sort of look at it and think, is this what it's come to now, where Arsenal have beaten a team that have lost one game all season in very controversial circumstances? They thrust themselves back into the title race, 2 points behind, and they can't have a bit of a laugh and a bit of a joke at full time. Really, is that where we're at now with football?
Well, it was only who the guy, wasn't it, at the end, when I'm not too sure if this, I haven't looked in the papers today, but I'm not too sure if the guy who's actually taking his camera off, obviously the photographer,
Mm.
and I don't know whether he knew him quite well or possibly, I don't know, a birthday or something like that. but quite clearly it was a joke he was having with the guy, taking his camera and stuff like that. If you go as far as what Carragher said there, I think it sounds really bitter and quite petty, to be honest with you, because he's saying he should be down the tunnel celebrating, or not even celebrating, so he should be down the tunnel, obviously getting back in the dressing room and seeing what Arteta did. But the other thing where it goes out the other side is, you remember back to when, and obviously we not a memory we want to particularly to discuss too much, but you remember when Liverpool won against us in the last minute and you had Klopp running all over the pitch and celebrating? If that happened Liverpool-wise and they ended up with the result that Arsenal did, Jamie Carragher would not be saying exactly what he said about Arsenal. And I'll get belts for this again, Matt, but I've never particularly disliked Carragher. I think he's a good pundit. I like what he says. I like how he talks. I like how he discusses us as well. I think it's quite sensible what he says. That to me was it just looked like he was crying over what happened in that game, really. And let's face it, it was one player. You know, it wasn't the whole team did typically what we do if we won a game. You go to Gladys, clap, then go back down into the changing rooms or whatever, have a chat with the manager, whatever it is. The guy's not running around as if they've won the league. He's just having a laugh and a giggle with a guy, a photographer. I'm pretty sure there'll be something amongst that, because he's not just going to simply go over to a random photographer and grab his camera and start taking photos. I don't know what's happened there. Clearly, that insinuates to me that there's been something there. But you're absolutely right about how things go out of proportion in this league now. Do you know the other side of it as well, playing devil's advocate, Matt? I'm just glad it wasn't about VAR. So, maybe you'd like to watch something like that instead of talking about VAR stuff, which, I mean, that game, it's probably one of the first I've watched which didn't really have any relevance of VAR.
Well, I think the Arsenal first goal was checked, though, wasn't it? Like all the goals were checked. I think a couple of goals were checked in that game still. But I do think...
The Saka one, though, Matt, the Saka one, I can understand that, because that shot's gone in. I think they're right to check whether he stepped in front when the shot's been gone in. You check whether the player who's knocked it in is offside. I actually think that one's okay. But you're right. There seems to be like a level of paranoia now with VAR, which will then therefore increases the hatred we've all got of what's going on with this now. Well, as you're right there, to be fair, what you said there about it's still involved, I'd go as far as then saying that it was the least that we've saw from it where there's controversy or anything deeply like that. Yeah. And I thought it was a cracking game to watch, by the way.
Yeah, and a few of their fans are still having a moan about penalty getting sent off. But like I do think the whole celebrations are full time and VAR are linked, though, because it just feels to be like a rush to just drain all the joy out of football, like like poison from a wound. It's I don't get this sudden rush to condemn footballers and fans who seem like they're having a good time at the final whistle. It's mad. And I wrote about this today, and I stood in the ground on Saturday after our 2 goals, not knowing whether we'd scored, whether it was going to be disallowed, whether you could celebrate. Like our first goal, ultimately, I knew it was given because Spurs kicked off again, and I just said to me dad, like, "Oh right, we scored." Like that's not what it's about, is it? Going the game, like I think like you're seeing more of these sorts of displays of full time and people sort of letting their emotions loose after the game a bit more, because you can't do it during the actual match anymore because you're constantly having to check yourself. And as soon as you see that divvying goal for Spurs lining up to take a free kick after we've scored, you're thinking, well, this is going to be disallowed. Or you're looking like at any... You immediately, when you're in the ground, maybe this is just an Everton thing, because we are a bit more pessimistic in that point of view. Maybe other teams don't do it and have the same mindset. Or maybe it's just my issue, my thing. But like I will always, if we scored a goal now, it's like, right, how you do a little internal checklist of how is this going to be disallowed? How could they go about disallowing this? Could it be offside? Could it be a foul? Could something else have happened in the build-up? Is there a handball in there anywhere? And I think it's very rare now that you get a goal which is pure in that sense, if you get what I mean, which isn't, there can't be retrospectively turned over in any way, shape, or form because you're thinking and worrying. Like I thought that even Spurs goal of the weekend, the second one, I thought there might have been an offside in the build up to that. So I imagine the fans were thinking the same. And it feels like that little bit at the end of the game when you've won and everyone's on the pitch, player manager, fans, you've won a big game. It's almost like one of the last untainted, uncontaminated, pure bits of football you can have that you go the game for because you can't really celebrate goals anymore. But having to check yourself and wait and worry and be anxious. But you don't get that rush anymore. So it's effectively what I'm trying to say is, they're fucks to them for going a bit over the top, for being a bit daft and enjoying that with the fans because you can't really get your joy anywhere else in football at the moment, can you?
Well, you think about us as fans, obviously, that's the thing that's top of the list that this affects. VAR's affected is mostly fans that suffer more than anybody else. But you think if you're playing as well, there must be an immense frustration when you're actually the person that is playing, that you're trying to create chances, you're trying to score goals. There's a purity of.
Sorry to interrupt you, but you saw exactly that with our first goal on
Yeah.
Saturday because Harrison and Calvert-Lewin were sort of a bit like, oh, I don't know what's happened there. I don't really know who scored. Like, just gave each other like a little low five, and that was it. It wasn't like there wasn't like a big
Yeah.
happy moment like where they battled back, played really well, and equalised. It was like, oh, I'm not really sure about this, and that's shite.
Well, the other side of that, Matt, the flip side of it is you start hoping that it's happened when someone scored against you as well. So the purity in any regards of a match you watch is just, it's been evaporated from us. It's gone. It's interesting that we're talking about this because I had a chat briefly with a guy on Twitter. He's a Southampton fan. And he said since they've gone down, they've enjoyed football more than they ever have since VAR came in. So how long's VAR been in? Maybe 5, 6 years max since it's been. Well, it is that, isn't it? Because of what happened in the Women's World Cup when it was first put in. And he was saying to me, since they've gone down, the actual games themselves, he felt like a proper fan before. And I mistaken him in what he said. I said, "What do you mean by proper fan? Is that you slating fans of the Premier League?" He said, "Absolutely not." He said, "It's pitying. There's a pity towards fans in the Premier League because, yeah, okay, you've been relegated, you've gone to the Championship. No one wants that." But he said, it's not. You wouldn't even go as simplistic as I'm making the best of what's gone on with us, and we've got relegated. So you try and stay as positive as you possibly can. It's not even that. He was talking about how you just go with what the referee's done, and I think there's a huge irony in this because if you speak to a Liverpool fan, one of the referees they purely hated for many years was Howard Webb. They used to say Howard Webb was a United fan because he come from over the road and stuff like that. I've asked Reds friends who are Reds, and I've said, would you be happy to go back to those days when we'd be sitting there after games slating a refereeing decision? Would you prefer that? Because let's face it, it wasn't perfect, which is why this ended up happening, VAR. But if you went back to those years when things have happened with referees, I mentioned it on Twitter about the Bolton game, which ultimately kept us up years ago. Would you pay the price of going back to do that, given what VAR is like? And I think maybe a poll we do at some point, but I think there'd be a high percentage of fans who just completely get rid of VAR and go back to again the word purity of refereeing, like I say, 5 or 6 years ago, because you're having something. I think like us, we talking on Monday every week. Us arguing about, I'd rather sit here arguing about a refereeing decision than a VAR decision, because why that's worse is because they've actually got the technology to test it. And it's even worse than me or you standing on a pitch blowing our whistle. I just, that's the thing that really gets me. And he really opened my mind up about that talking to this guy today. He was like, mate, honestly, he said, no one wants to go to the Championship when you've been a Premier League side. But I tell you what, when I go to a game and my team scores a goal, I can go off my head if I want to because I know it's going to be a goal because the linesman's going to put the flag up straight away if it's not, and then you carry on with the game. It's a real shame that that's a rarity to us in the Premier League.
Well, that used to be it, didn't it? In the ground, you'd look at the assistant referee and you'd know then whether it was a goal or not. That was the first and last check you did really on any goal. But
yeah,
there you go. There's our silver lining if we get relegated.
It's not me to say stuff like that, Matt.
It's yeah. I just find the whole thing a bit mad. It's like, come on,
Do you ever think they'll end it? Do you ever think they'll get to a point
no.
where it ever goes?
But
Given
I
how
do
worse
think
it's
if we
getting
went,
now.
I do think if we went back to how it was, I'd like to think we'd all be a bit calmer and have a bit more perspective when referees did make bad mistakes, because we all know how crap it is now with it. If that
Well,
makes sense. Because I think like the the temptation and the instinct when it wasn't a thing. I'm sure if people go back to listen to us on pods after we've been done over by a referee before VAR, we will be saying stuff like, "Oh, we can't wait till technology comes in. This will sort all this out," and it hasn't, has it? It's still rubbish. Like they still get decisions wrong, and it's killed what should be one of the most sacred things
yeah.
in football, which is being able to celebrate a goal in a stadium that you've seen live with your eyes, and you can't do that anymore. So
Yeah. Well, it's like the other thing as well. It's like, get home and people have the traditions of games. You go and get your chippy tea on the way home and you watch match of the day overnight. When you go, like the other day, going home Saturday, looking at watching match of the day and the games that have been on, particularly that Newcastle 4-4 with Luton. And I'm looking for to be a VAR decision. And like even like the BBC and every match of the day have their own sort of little graphic VAR, and I'm like, that's how far it's gone because you're going to have to use that at some point in a game. I can't remember a game where it's not being used for anything, absolutely anything. Sending off, offside, goals, penalties. Can you remember when there's not been a VAR decision happening in a game? And I think it's got to a point now where the referee inside of it, those in Stockley Park, are thinking, well, we almost have to do this. Maybe there's on their side of it. I'm not going in sort of defending them, but a lot of them must sit there and think we have to check on this, otherwise, I'm not going as far as saying these guys are sort of like got their hand strapped behind the back in terms of what they have to do, but it does feel like there's a pressure to have to make a particular decision because there's no way they can finish a game and then say, yeah, that was perfect, referee was perfect, linesman was perfect. There's no way anybody's going to be employed to be able to do that. So that's why I think that there's no fairity. Fair. There's nothing fair involved in the way it goes, particularly when you look at other sides as well. I mean, how many times have people, and look, we're probably the wrong fans to say this as fans of Everton, but we've seen decisions, big decisions, which we've spoken about a lot quite regularly on our podcasts, that have happened against us. Now, I don't think you yourself probably watch more games than me when you get a chance, but you see other games and you think there's not many who've got worse decisions than us. We look like we look like we're getting bollocked every week. Let's be fair.
Yeah. Wolves are the only ones I'd say who've had harder luck than us. Maybe they seem to get shockers every week, but yeah, it's shite, but it's here to stay. And
it's just shite. Final word.
It's just shite. So let's talk about someone that's not shite now. We'll go from our Everton player from the weekend. I'm going to go first in this one, Dave, because I always defer to you, and you always say Vitaly Mykolenko, but I'm gonna go first today with this one, and I think he deserves loads of credit actually to Idrissa Gueye, because is that going to be yours?
He was going to be first out of my list, but yeah, go on.
Mykolenko second.
I don't think Mykolenko was that good this year.
No, it didn't get a good game actually, but Idrissa Gueye was brilliant. Obviously he's been away the last month. He was injured before he went off. We just didn't really know how long he was going to be out for, and the fact he was back on a plane this week, straight back into the side.
Yeah.
And just thought he had a really good game, non-stop throughout. He took a couple of really heavy knocks, didn't he, too, and just carried on, plowing on, really. And he gave us something different in that area of the pitch that we've not had since he's gone.
Yeah.
As much as Onana gets it, gives it, is a big physical presence in there, and James Garner hustles and bustles about. I don't think either of them are as intense or intelligent in the way in which they are hunting the ball as he is out of possession. And the amount of times he just broke up their attacks, got us going, was absolutely fantastic. And he's one of those players, I think, sometimes that when he's been in the team for a bit and you watch him, he can do your head in and you think, oh, he's sloppy on the ball and all this. But when he's been missing for a bit and when he comes back into the team, I think you really notice what he does give us.
Yeah, I think there's he's a conventional defensive midfield player, which you don't see that often. I think that um, it sort of fell out a little bit of what we see in games now because it needs to be a box to box player who's playing as a six. Um, and maybe a little bit older in terms of the core in previous seasons. He's probably a full 10 now. Let's face it. But he was in the team as somebody who's a defensive midfielder who can go forward. I'm sure Onana would have been asked to do that sort of thing. I'm not really sure he's that kind of player for us now. But with Idrissa Gueye coming back in, his job is to mop up what comes in behind the midfield and just in front of the back 4 or 5. And then he did that immensely. I completely agree with you. I think Højbjerg for them, who's somebody we very nearly signed a few seasons ago, he's generally been a top player in that position. I thought Idrissa Gueye was better than him. And that's they're big comments to make on a player that's been out for a while. I mean, the last time he played was well before he went out to with his nation as well. So for him to step in,
was Spurs away, wasn't it?
Did he play in Spurs away?
He played at Spurs away, yeah. Because I don't know, actually, it might have been before then.
I think it was before then. Someone will have to check, but he when he first came back, I was really critical of him because initially the only way I could defend him by saying when he was at a team like PSG where he's going to play a different style of football, well, a completely different match than you would do when you're playing at Everton because you're playing for the team who's going to have 70-80% of the ball. When you're in France playing with PSG, you come back to Everton in the Premier League, it takes a while to get back. There's one thing I'd criticise him back in that game. Matt, what do you think it's going to be?
From the game on Saturday?
Yeah, one thing
that shot was horrific, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's it. That shot was horrendous, and he's never been able to hit a ball properly. The other point of that as well is I'm not sure he was charging in from the right hand side, but could have just laid it off to him. We've got a chance of scoring a goal. But yeah, I mean, you can't really take away what kind of performance he had there. So yeah, I think it's a top player to go for. Just again, he's going to be crucial for us to have him back.
Yeah, the last time he did play was at Spurs away. He played 24 minutes that day, yeah. I think he came off and Gomez came on, didn't he? Obviously played really well.
He can't play many for us this season. I don't know what, 10, 15 games, something like that.
It's been funny for him. I think he started the season when we had no wingers with Garner playing on the right wing. And then I think Dyche has gradually moved away from him in midfield, hasn't he? And settled on Garner and Onana. And I think there were a couple of home games in a row. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think Luton was one.
Yeah.
Where he started and he was dragged off at our time when we're trying to push for the win. So I mean, that's going to be interesting in midfield. Because I don't think Onana's too far away, is he? By the sounds of it, it sounds like something little. Decore's back doing work on the grass, apparently, whatever that translates to in terms of Dyche terminology. But are we set up in there? Effectively, you've got 4 players, haven't you, for 3 positions. One of them is Decore when he's fit, I think 100%. And then you've got 3 into 2 in the sort of 2 deeper midfield positions. And I think he's got quite decent options there. It'd be interesting to see who he actually does go with, if everybody ever does get fit.
Well, yeah, it's just a bit of a shame to think it's away at Man City if any of these lads are back, really, isn't it? I think you'd be hard pressed to say we get something when you go away to them, given the Liverpool getting defeat there. Basically, open the door for them because if they win both of the games in hand, they go top. But in regards to my player, I've gone for Ben Godfrey because I think I didn't notice he was playing right back for about, I don't know, half an hour, most of the first half. And that was because there was a consistency from him where I thought there was no particular, and sometimes when you watch games and you think they just fly by, you don't see anybody particularly because they haven't done anything wrong, nor have they had the ball much. I think the former what I said there was exactly what he was like. Thought he defended really well, which has been a massive issue in his game ever since we've got him, really. Apart from when we first got him, those first 2 seasons, when we thought this lad's going to be better than John Stones and, the way Branthwaite is these days. But I think Branthwaite's probably, he's marked to go better than the most central defenders that there are in the Premier League and they've played for England. But Ben Godfrey there took a lot. I think he did an interview afterwards, Matt. You probably know more about that than me, where he said he was really glad to get back playing football and things like that. I think I think there's a maturity from that lad too. You don't really hear much of him in terms of speaking out loud, or I don't know, going out in the lash like Rashford at Man United. He just seemed like a quiet lad who just cracks on with it. Um, the other interesting thing is I don't think Patterson's longed for Everton, by the way, as long as Sean Dyche is the manager. No idea what's going on with that because he's a very, very talented lad. Maybe not achieved it with us yet, but he's somebody you probably get a big price for if you let him play like 30 odd games in a season. But nonetheless, getting Godfrey back in right back, we know how versatile he is. And then bringing Seamus on for him towards the end. Um, I think that he's somebody again. He'll be crucial to us, given the fact that how small our squad is. You're not going to have Seamus playing full 90 for the rest of the season. So if he sticks to that level of form, he's been through a lot of downs, hasn't he? Since like all of us are saying, why has he gone crap? You loan him out, you probably try and sell him. Various teams have allegedly been interested in him. There was a real professionalism what he came in and did against Spurs there. So he's going to be my player of the game.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. He was good. Like he was good in his own awkward kind of way, wasn't he? I think in a
He
game like
wasn't
that,
whipping
where
forward,
what was that?
sorry,
Sorry.
Matt. He wasn't. He wasn't whipping forward on the wings. Sorry, at fullback like we used to see him, and I think there was a real discipline about that because he knew who he was up against. Nonetheless, you're probably going to see that against lesser sides. Well, in inverted commas, lesser sides against us. You're going to see him bomb on and want to, play alongside Harrison, who's over there. That sort of thing. It probably will come if he stays in the side. But I thought there was a real maturity, given he knew he was up against coming down from that side for Spurs. So that's the only thing I wanted to say to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, it's right, and I think Werner was playing on the left for them, wasn't he? And like he feels like a good match for him because Werner is just all about pace, isn't he? And
Yeah.
Godfrey is. But I think there was one time when Madison did a nice little turn and played Werner in behind that Godfrey got caught out. But other than that, he was fine. He doesn't have one of those running back towards his own goal and he hooking the ball away, goal saving tackles, which is kind of becoming a bit of a trademark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I think I've said on this show before that if you look at everything he's got, Godfrey, and listen, there are loads of things he hasn't got. But I think if you look at the attributes he's got in terms of his aggression, his physicality, his versatility, like he should fit into what Dyche wants to do really well. Like in the way we play, it's not about subtlety. It's not about necessarily being intricate on the ball or playing out from the back. It's about being aggressive, being dominant, winning your battles, and that's kind of ideal for him, isn't it? Like you
Yeah.
look at him and what he is as a footballer, and that's the sort of team he should be playing in to be able to get the best out of him. So I
I
don't
thought
think,
he
I don't think
was
he's
too,
lost
Matt.
by any
Sorry,
means
Matt.
from our point of view.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think he initially was a bit of a victim of his own success, as in you could play him anywhere across the line. There's no particular, I know he's a central defender, original, that's his trade, but when he's played on either side, he did so well in his initial couple of years. You're like, well, you don't really know where to put him if you've got, like, for instance, that lad, say if Tarkovsky got injured or Branthwaite got injured and you're putting Keane in, I don't know. He plays like that. I think there's a lot of shouts to say you've got to include Godfrey in there instead of a Michael Keane, or for instance, if both them in, did you put Godfrey as a central defender or part of the dreaded five or whatever it is? But I do think he's been a victim of his own success because if he'd have stuck being a right back, you're looking at the natural heir of Seamus. If he'd have stuck to that and he was able to keep the form in which he did, and with Dyche as well, with the Patterson issue he seems to have, you'd think he'd be the next right back for us because it certainly saves you money trying to go and buy one.
Yeah, it's small steps for him, isn't it? Like he's been out for a while. He's come in. He's played 3 games all season, hasn't he? And we've done relatively well in them all. Obviously, we won barely, played that night, drew at Fulham and drew at the weekend. So fingers crossed that he can start making progress back towards that player he was over the weekend. I don't think we'll ever see him in a back as part of a 2-man central defence, like as one of the two by any means. But I think Dyche will go to Keane first, and then you'll look at Godfrey, as a fourth choice option. But I think as a right back, playing in a back three as an emergency left back, he is absolutely fine. And listen, he probably deserves to run the team now. I imagine he'll play at the weekend. Maybe he's part of the back five. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But just quickly looking ahead to the weekend a little bit, Dave. It is a thankless task, isn't it? City. We're recording this before they play Brentford on Monday night, so who knows how they get on there against them. But they're starting to look a bit more on it again. Haaland's coming back, so it's going to be difficult for us. What would you be looking to do with the team? Because obviously the core might be back, and Anna might be back. I think at the weekend there were a few tired bodies there. I think McNeil and Harrison in particular looked absolutely gassed at the end. And I don't want to sit here and say let's send the under-12s there by any means, but it does sort of feel like one of those where if you can get Dobbin into the team at the expense of one of them, maybe do it. I wouldn't be rushing Decore back into the 11 by any means. Maybe give him half an hour off the bench, that'd be fine. But if he has to miss it out, so he's ready for Palace, absolutely. I sort of feel like it's one of them where, again, this sounds so defeatist, but you've got to think more about Palace in 2 weeks than City in a week.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say there, and and again, I think there'll be a certain level of criticizing because people will say, "Oh, you've got to go there and go for it, and you can't stop doing that sort of thing." But you're absolutely right. I think it's, there's never a good time to go and play City. You'd probably want to get the 2 games, the home and away games, out of the first 2 games of the season, wouldn't you, if you had that choice? But going away to them at this particular stage, and lest we forget, the time of doing this, they've still got an away game tonight, but it looks like it feels ominous to me that they get in that ridiculous run of wins there, and that's ultimately how they've gone and taken the Premier League in recent years. Against us, let's face it, they're probably delighted to be playing us. I think you look at Dyche in a certain way and think maybe this goes back to a traditional Dyche there, who would take his former Burnley team to there and just try and make it as absolutely difficult as possible. You just want to, there's a physical battle there. I think it'd be really interesting how, if Haaland's back for that one, seeing Branthwaite versus him is actually something I'd relish to see. I'd like to see how he did against him,
Godfrey did a great job on him, didn't he, in this fixture last season? And like Haaland scored early on, and you're thinking, oh no, there we go. And then Godfrey got under his skin and wound him up, and he should have been sent off in that game. Do you remember the tackle on Mikolenko when he launched himself?
Yes.
We ended up going there and getting a point, didn't we, somehow? So, that's why I definitely put Godfrey at the weekend anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And if he is on that right-hand side, they've got on the left there is just ridiculous talent. And they don't even get Grealish barely gets a game these days. You've got Doku, who I think's going to be a top-class player too. You've got Foden flying around whenever he wants. If he goes to that 5 at the back that we've complained about a lot, you couldn't really blame him against these, could you? You could not do that. You've got Calvert-Lewin, who's still struggling to get a goal, even though it looked like he scored and everybody thought he'd scored against Spurs the other day. He's got a thankless task up there in the zone because there's no way he's going to be playing alongside somebody.
I think he's on the bench on Saturday. I think you play Beto or Chimity. I think one of them starts.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a situation when we play 5 across the back of Coleman, Godfrey, Tarkowski, Branthwaite, Mikolenko. Then Young and Dobbin as your 2 wide midfielders. Idrissa Gueye, Garner or Onana centre mid, and then you've got 1 centre forward. Like that feel that like I just say to Harrison and McNeil, like, lads, you've ran yourselves into the ground for weeks and weeks and weeks. You're both knackered. Just have an hour on the bench here at least, and then you can go full throttle into Palace. Because I think those 2 in particular need it, because it's not just about playing for them and creating and trying to be wingers. It's the manager asks for so much from them from a off the ball point of view, and they both just look like they're running empty at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think because the only time you're saying to them there, have a rest, lads. But if you actually got a chance here, or it's only 1-1 with 15 left, might throw you on there to see what we can do, or you both are just going to run your asses off in that game. We need you to track back and stuff like that. Because let's face it, if City aren't ahead by the time you get to the last half hour, you're going to basically have 11 lads standing on the goal line, aren't you? That's the only way you get something there. I don't know. Maybe we're being too optimistic of what City can do these days, given that they haven't been great, have they? They haven't been themselves. Maybe a little bit ominous to say that, but yeah, I hate to say it, mate, but you don't hide into nothing going there, particularly at this stage, particularly if you've got the best striker in the world back. Um, I don't know.
Midfielder in the world back.
Just going back to that, what'd you say?
The best midfielder in the world back as well.
Who's back for that? Who's
De
back in
Bruyne,
there?
he's back in. He's back playing again now. De Bruyne.
Oh yeah, he's there. You got Bernardo. I don't even want to talk about their team because it's depressing when you're going to go and play them. But I think ultimately the first point you made there is spot on. Like you say, you don't go as far as saying, "Look, lads, we're going to write this one off, so everyone go and have a break there and make sure you're fit for this big Palace game. We've got to drag them into the relegation fight." But I'd love to hear what Dice is saying to these lads this week, because it can't possibly be let's go hell and leather here to try and get a result. It just couldn't possibly be. And I don't think it'd be that intelligent for him to do so. He's an experienced manager here who knows who you're going to play. It's a difficult way of wording it, I think, to certainly wouldn't word it to us outwardly or to the press, but certainly to that squad that he's got going there. I think it's. I wouldn't envy him saying that decision. I'd probably say Ian won't go and say that for us, will you? Like the toilet.
Yeah. Finally, before we wrap up, but I think if Dobbin and Schmidt did start, they came on and changed the game for the better on Saturday. It wouldn't be like it wouldn't be deserved for them to get an opportunity. Listen, it would be a thankless task for them playing as forwards in a game where they're going to have next to none of the ball, but it wouldn't be unwarranted or undeserved for either of them for the way in which they helped us get back into the game on Saturday.
No, I think that's a really good point too. I feel really sorry for Dobbin as well, because when he scored that goal, well, effectively last year now, when we had the 4 wins on the spot there, in 4 wins in a row, the goal he scored there, the way he celebrated and then goes on the bench the following game, I think that's so much of a. I mean, you understand it really that you don't want to throw him in for too much, but I don't think he got back on until a couple of games later after that. And to go from that level of high, when you're a young player, to then you must be sitting there wondering. You obviously know why if you've got that level of intelligence as a young lad, which he probably has. But you're sitting there thinking, I can't wait to get back on. Gaffer, get me back on as soon as possible. I want to get on there. I want to fly. I've shown you what I can do. And that's no fault of Dice, by the way. Dice is like, well, I can't just throw you on because you have that inexperience. We need to have lads who know what's going on a little bit more than yourself. Difficult to put them on when you're in a struggling condition, but I think starting him or certainly in playing at whatever point, because you've got 2 knackered lads there on each wing. I'd like to see him a little bit more. Shmiti again. I mean, we don't really know what he's got. Seems to have a lot of the reports about him. Seems to be like he's going to be a really, really good forward. I mean, what do we have? Is it Saturday, then the following Monday? So what, 8 days, 9 days? 9 days. I mean, the other way of looking at it, you'll see people saying put out your best 11 because you've then got 9 days until the next one. Or would you go as far as saying 9 days is enough for everything to get sorted for the next game?
I just looked at McNeil and Harrison and just thought, my God, I'd be half tempted to say to them, like, going out 5 days away somewhere, they've both done a great job. I know Harrison's been getting loads of flack recently because he struggled, and obviously McNeil's issues off the pitch are well documented. He spoke very candidly and emotionally about them himself last week, didn't he, through the channels? And
Did you with McNeil as well? Have you felt he's played a little bit deeper?
Yeah, McNeil in particular, I found it so strange that he was rushed back as quick as he was after that Palace injury. It felt like that was close to being a season over. Obviously, we've got lucky because he is playing and can run around on the pitch, but it just feels like he's been rushed back far too quick. And obviously, he's got all the stuff going on off the pitch. And I'd just be saying to him, go and have a few days away from everywhere, and come back in on the Sunday after City or next Monday, and we'll have you right for Palace physically. It's like when you play Footy Manager and your assistant manager's like player fitness concern over player X, player Y. Like Harrison and McNeil are like in the little red health bar where the heart thing is to signify how much energy they've got. They're running on empty. So I'd be sort of tempted just to give both of them. Maybe have them in the squad by all means, because like you said, if that scenario unfolds where we're 0-0 on 60, or God forbid we manage to sneak a goal from a set piece, and we can get something. There's a realistic chance of us getting something from the game. Then by all means, give them half an hour. But I just look at them both and think you need to have a game on the bench. You need to have a few days off, and then that should hopefully serve us better further down the line. We've got some maybe more winnable games, but listen, the manager, I'm sure, will see it differently. So we'll see. We'll talk about that in a lot more detail this week. We'll wrap up Blue Monday here. Dave's, you're going to be doing subs weekly early this week.
Yeah, I think we're sort of swapping over, aren't we? You're doing weekly and I'm doing subs.
I'm doing weekly. We've also got weekend preview, and I don't want to have Dave Mooney on for that. Another old new borrowed blue mailbag, all usual stuff building up to that big match on Saturday at the Etihad Stadium. But that has been Blue Monday. Cheers for tuning in. Up the toffees, and we'll catch you soon.